Hi, this is Jim Gibson, and this is part 3 of Tools of the Trade. And we have some testers here, things like that. That's what we're going to be talking about today. It's not about screwdrivers and wire cutters anymore, or hammers, or, or things like that. It's going to be a little bit further advanced, and it's going to be talking about tools of the trade. And I have some tools here that I'm showing you. And today we're going to talk about when to use them, how to use them, what they are, things like that. So let's get started. A lot of these tools, we're going to go through each one, by the way. And I'll point them out and show you how they're used and things like that. But right now, let's talk a little bit about when you use certain tools at certain times of the install. So I always broke my installs up into phases. First phase was pulling cable through the walls, through the ceiling. You always pull from the data center or close to the data center, maybe right on the other side of the wall of the data center or data room. If you have a lot of equipment in there, you don't want to be tripping over things. You want to pull outside that data room, but you want to pull enough cable so that you can just push it over the wall and you can punch it down to where you need to punch it down. And there is an art to that. A cable that's 1 foot too short is the most expensive cable on earth. And so you're going to have a little bit of waste, and I'm going to show you how you recover, or in future I will show you how to recover that waste. Hey, you know something? Just a side note. I'm going to be doing a video class. I'm working on it on Network Plus, CompTIA Network Plus. I am not an authorized sales rep for CompTIA Network Plus that have been trained by the officials there. But I'll cover everything that's in this book in detail. But I'll also add to it my experience and my things and how to do it. Like, I got a unique way to do IP subnetting. And if you're great at subnetting, or you struggle with subnetting because you got to do a Cisco test or things like that, I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover cabling. I'm going to cover everything I talk about it. If you know anything about my videos, you know that I'm talking about experience. I've done 6,000 installs. And not only that, I designed a lot of data networks, a lot of data centers, things like that. Had to deal with customers, IT people, everything else. So I've done a lot of that. And I think I'm going to put that into the course. Now, what would help me is I just want to see how much people are going to be interested in that. So if that's something you're interested in, would you just let me know? So I know I'm not just wasting my days, because it's going to be very detailed. I am going to charge for it. Hopefully it'll be a reasonable charge. It depends on how much effort, time, and resources I have to put into it. I'm still in the planning stage. But I need to hear from you if that's something that would help you. Because, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years, man. More than that, 40 years in IT. And you learn a lot. And you learn a lot that's not in books. And sometimes you read the books and you scratch your head and you say, I can't believe they're even teaching that. And sometimes you're saying, I can't believe they're even teaching that subject anymore, because no one's doing it like that, or no one's doing that subject anymore. So if it's something that you're interested in, and it's something you think that you could, at a reasonable price that you would sign up for that class, then let me know. But let's get back to what we're doing. So remember, there's a couple phases of an install. So we're talking just about the cables and the jacks and everything else. We're not talking about IP networks. We're not talking about equipment. We're not talking about anything like that. We're just talking about cabling a building, okay? And there's a couple of phases. And the first phase is what's called pre-cable. So you go out and you cable the building according to what the salesman has sold, according to what you have sold, according to what's on the scope of work, things like that, the floor plan. That's all pre that, but according to the floor plan, you're going to put the jacks in certain locations, things like that. And so once you get the jacks in, once they are punched down, because we talked about punch down in one of the other ones of this series, and once you punch them down to the back of a patch panel and all that other stuff, then that's phase 2, and that's called set and finish. So you go out, you pull your cables. Sometimes you have to wait for the other trades to get done what they're doing. You want the walls up, you want the dry walls up. Man, I remember having a discussion with a general contractor. He wanted me out there to pull the cable before they put the drywall up. He said, because once you put the drywall up, you can't get behind it. And I said, no, I can. It's a lot easier once the drywall's up to get cable behind it. If it's not a home, because you got drop ceilings, you have things like that, you already know the path that you're going to pull the cable in. So once you pull the cable, once you set finish, and set finish is, you know, putting that face plate on and stuff like that, and it actually might be identifying that cable also. There's a way to identify that cable. So you got everything plugged in, right? You got everything done. You're not pulling cable anymore. All your cable boxes are back in the truck. So now you have to identify that jack on the wall. Now some people identify the cable, and the way they do it, and that's okay if you only got like 10 cables, is they write on the cable. You see that? They use a Sharpie. And if I was only pulling 10 cables, yeah, I doubt I'd do it this way even then. But that's the way I used to do it all the time, and sometimes it gets pretty tedious to do it this way. And sometimes these things get smudged, and they're hard to read, and you're hoping you did it right. And sometimes people write it 3 or 4 times, but then you have to cut the cable to fit it in at the right place, and then you're hopefully remembered where it's supposed to go. I don't do that anymore. That's being jack-centric. In other words, some people like doing something that they feel is really neat, where they start on the left side of the room and they do, you know, clockwise all the way around the room, and they, you know, the jacks in numbers. And I hear arguments, and people say, well, how would you find the jack if it wasn't like that? Well, I got an answer for that, okay? And I think it's a better answer, because if you're going to make money at cabling, okay, if you're going to make money, or you're a data guy and you want to get success here in a building, then there's another way to do it that's, you know, at least 30% savings, if not more, on labor, total labor in the project. And one of the things I use is a cable identifier. And this is a cable identifier. It's on my website. I am the inventor of the cable identifier. It's just a power supply, right? And it's LEDs. And so what I do is I populate the patch panels with LEDs. And the LEDs won't light up until the power supply is plugged in. And this is an old one too. This came from one of my guys' trucks or something. I don't have that logo anymore. But anyway, I don't need to worry about it. I tell you where I came out of this. I worked for a company up in Long Beach. I think it was Long Beach Mortgage, AmeriQuest Mortgage, something like that. And they had rented, bought, purchased, moved into a really big building in Long Beach. I mean, it was probably 10 stories high. And I had to cable it for their network, and I had to cable maybe 4 or 5 floors. And so there was hundreds and hundreds of cables that went in there. And if you looked at the darn thing, I should have videotaped it actually, you could see these racks that are just full of patch panels going from the floor to the ceiling. And you know, if you have to look at every single cable coming in, looking for a number of that, you know, where it goes, and if you actually put it on the wrong rack, or you do this, or mislabel it, then your whole little scheme, your unprofessional scheme, by the way, in my opinion, of starting to the left and doing clockwise around the room, of course it doesn't work anymore once someone decides to add an extra jack when you're just about done the job. It doesn't work anymore. So I use this. I use cable identifier. It becomes patch panel centric, not jack centric. It's patch panel centric. So now I send someone out, they plug in the power supply, one of these lights on the patch panel, and then I know what location on the patch panel it is. So I always name my patch panels alpha. So it'd be alpha, you know, A, B, C, D, E type of thing. And then it would be the port number. So if someone plugged in and that light lit up and it was on the second patch panel, and I'd always label it with a B or something like, you know, obviously it had to be a B. And so I would just call on a handheld walkie-talkie. These things are cheap, man, under 50 bucks, and they're rechargeable. Some people use their cell phones, and that's absolutely fine. But some people get annoyed at using cell phones. This is a lot easier. And so they would say, pushing the power supply, and that means plugging it in. We always use push. And then the light would light up, and I would pull out that light, and then I would tell them it was B, patch panel B, jack number 2 or jack number 3. And then they would take one of these suckers, these label machines, and this is one that I have. I still own Nova, by the way. I just sold my database to a good guy who's managing that for me. And then, you print the B2, and you put it up there. So it says data B2. And, someone goes to that jack, they look at it, they know exactly where it goes on the patch panel. I also write it on the floor plan at that point. And so at that point, that it's right there on the floor plan. And when it's all done, I print up the floor plan nice with the names of each jacks and each locations. And if you label the jack rather than the patch panel, if you're jack-centric, then what happens when the desk goes up against the wall? And I know someone's going to say, well, they just count the jacks from left to right, and if they see 3 and then it goes to 5, they know it's 4 underneath the desk. Nah, it's not the way to do it, man, because I could have 2 jacks underneath that desk. I could have jack 20 along with jack 4. So anyway, make a long story short, once you're done identifying, this is the identifying part. Once you're done identifying, then what you do is use a tester. And I would test every single thing. So the phrase would be with my guys, because they would plug this in, there'd be a little patch cord there. They would plug this in and at their location, so they would say pushing the remote, or they'd just say pushing, because it was like a routine. You knew they were pushing into that jack you just identified to them. They labeled it, they pushed this in, they're doing the labeling, they're doing the cleaning up, things like that. I'm running an auto test. You see it says auto test. And also if I need a length. Some people ask for a length. Some IT guys are interested in lengths. But if you're under 300 feet, you're actually within the standards. So you're absolutely fine under 300 feet. However, most pulls are going to be under 100 feet, not 300 feet. But sometimes they want to know that. I never charged per foot. Or I used to charge like 10, 15 years ago per foot. I don't charge per foot. I charge per location. And that just got a lot easier to do bidding, got a lot easier for the customer. The customer knew what I was doing and they understood and everything else, and it's just more straightforward. If they needed an add jack, then I just added that one solid cost. I'd always charge more for patch panels, but for the cable and the jack and the faceplate and everything else, man, I can't charge that little itty bitty stuff. It'd take you forever and cost you time. So that would be the last thing I would do, is I would test it. If it passed tests, it's going to work positively, absolutely. Don't have to worry about it. I used to get a 15-year warranty. I don't think I ever was called back because I tested every single location, and that's what you should do also if you're a cabler. Now, I got this here. This is a tone and probe, tones and probes are good when you're troubleshooting. Someone says, well, I plugged into this jack and I don't know where this RJ11 goes and my phone doesn't work and I got to figure out, and especially with voice, you're going to need one of these. And this is what a tone and probe is. You can hear it. I turn on the tone, it does a wobble. And I do a video on how to use this, and how to identify. Even if you have a big bulk of cable like this, you can jab it in there and you can trace it, and then you pull out the cable you need, and you can touch it, and you can identify the individual cable on that. Now this is how I set up my tone. This is a tone generator. And this is how I set up mine. That other one came from one of my employees, I believe. I always put a tie wrap there. That's of course, this is a lanyard, and this would take the stress off the cable itself. Because you're always hanging these somewhere, and they're always getting caught on something and everything else. And then pretty soon someone pulls out one of these, and gosh, you got to get and fix it. Come on, you're a cable guy. You can fix these things, man. You just use solder gun and you resolder it, but still it's a pain. So I always did that. Then I can hang it up if I wanted to, using the lanyard, or if I plug it in somewhere and it hangs from the area I plug in. then that's it takes the stress off the cable. So that's how I always set mine up. I don't know what this funky thing is. This is from one of my employees. I don't know what he was doing. It looks kind of funky. Plus these things are sharp. You cut your hand on it sometimes. You don't cut them right, and that's not cut right. At any rate, the nice thing about these two also, and I got to show you, is not only you plug that into the jack and then you listen at the other end for the tone, but you can also test continuity. You know, if you're building stuff and all, you see the green light goes on when I touch these. Test continuity. Also test shorts. You can test shorts that way. The other light is for dial tone. If you plug this into an RJ11, this is an RJ11 plug, by the way, and you can plug RJ11 into an RJ45 jack. So this is an RJ11, and it's made to go into RJ45 also. All RJ11s are. They can go into an RJ45, and RJ45 can't go into an RJ11. But you can plug this in, and if the other light lights up on there, then you have dial tone, or you have power on that line, so you know instantly. And if you have power, sometimes it's really hard to get a tone to go across it. But anyway, tone and probe, they've been around for 30 years. Everybody that does voice back then works with the phone company, things like that, always had a tone and probe in their pocket, things like that. Now, I know there's some people who are enthusiasts when it comes to doing patch cords. I am not, as you can tell. But if you are that type of person that's an enthusiast, or you just want to test your pinout on your jack to your patch panel, then this is what you need. This is just a pinout. It does not test. It does not test whether or not you know, the jack and the cable and the patch panel is all within the standards. This is just a test, and this comes apart. There you go. Or you can just leave it together if you're testing patch cords. And if you turn it on, you know, notice the green lights. It tests each wire, not just the pairs, but each wire. And it starts over and over again. So you know if one jumps, you know it's like a B standard on one end and an A on the other. You got a crossover, or you miscabled it, or you didn't punch down right, or there's a problem. And once in a while you do that in installs. You know, someone didn't punch down right, especially the newbies. Well, some of the old guys too. But they don't punch down right, and then you got to figure it out which one is not right and where it's at and things like that. And you can still get a tester to work, you know, such as my LEDs. They're still going to work, and but it's not going to certify as a good cable under the big certifier. And this is how you can figure it out sometimes. Sometimes the bigger ones, as I mentioned, just talked about a little while ago, they will tell you what pair. You just go to wire map, and they're going to tell you where the problem is. And sometimes they'll tell you how far the problem is. So if you did something goofy with the cable and you broke a cable inside, which is really hard to do, but I've seen it done, then it will tell you how many feet away from the edge, from where you're at, that break is. So that's kind of interesting, you know. It tells you a lot of things, and you go through them all. Plus it does a coax cable. This is a BNC. This is not even a coax. See, I don't think anyone's using BNC anymore, and I know that's in the book. They talk about BNC in the book, but I don't think anyone's using BNC anymore. I don't know. Never used that portion of the tester. So one thing also I want to show you is when you get these testers, they're quite expensive. So I have a Pelican Case. And these things can go in the back of the truck. All my trucks had one of these testers, by the way. They're not that expensive. Well, they are. They're a couple $100. If you're just starting out, that's pretty expensive. But, you know, they have the extra patch cords in there. They have a power supply, so if your batteries are dead, you can just plug it in, things like that. I don't know what else they got here, man. They got everything in there. Another jack, new jack, whatever. But these Pelican cases are excellent for equipment that's very expensive. This went into my truck number, where is it? Number 10. There it is. And they just protected the test equipment and just made it nicer. So let's look at some of the other stuff out there. Now this is kind of a do-it-yourself funky one. So if you have a doing house installs, things like that, there's a lot of people that do entertainment centers, things like that. This is the type of tester you need for that, because this is going to test coax also. You see it? That's a coax test. and you plug it into your coax. You can identify, you know, if you're going in someone's house and they want to put a TV there and you see that it has coax, and some providers still use coax for cable TV and things like that. They have numbers on them here, and you can plug them all in, and then if you go here, it will tell you, you know, you can test each one, and you know which one is what. It will identify, you know, plug number 1. I don't know how they set up here. Let's see. Someone has them out of order, but at any rate, you know, they can test it. Plus, they can also test the RJ45, but it's a light-duty tester. That's all you need. They're doing home improvement stuff. Is something like that. By the way, the hardest place to cable is a house. I've done houses before, and what would normally take an hour and 15 minutes in a business takes sometimes hours and hours and hours to do a house. And so, make a long story short, this is basically for someone doing houses. Another thing I often use in a house is one of these. Now you say, oh, that's just a stapler. No, it's not. This is a cool stapler, because sometimes you have to take that, what they would call IW, inside wire, Cat 5e, Cat 6, things like that, and you have to attach it to the wall. You see how that is? You see that little circle in there? It doesn't crush the cable when you use this as a stapler. So you can staple it right to the cable. I think it's a 25. A T25, if I'm right. Yeah, T25, if you can see that. Right? So you need T25 staples. These are kind of hard to get a hold of. Sometimes you have to order them online. Sometimes you have to order them from the Arrow company. And the staples are hard to get a hold of also. It's not your normal. Not everyone's going out and buying these all the time. You got different diameter cable here. It tells you how to adjust it, so you can get the different diameter, things like that. It's a pretty good little tool to have. A lot of people used to use these years ago when you were doing houses and things like that. So if you're a home improvement dude, that would be for you. That would be good for you. Now, I don't make my own patch cords, but this I like. This is I like these ones, and I do sell them. And they have little blades in there, so when you push your RJ45 through, and you know, I'm going to do a whole video on this type of cabling, but this is just a crimper, and it's a special crimper. It's not your normal crimper, and I'll show you how it's used when it comes to you know, crimping. Now, when you want to crimp with these things, what you want to do is you want to do this with solid cable. I heard someone the other day recommend on the internet that you use stranded cable for making your own patch cords. Good luck with that. That the strand goes all over the place, and you have to have special RJ45s for it to work on stranded compared to solid copper cable. These are great when you're cabling the back of a server to a patch panel. These are fantastic, because then you can take your solid cable, the stuff that you put behind the wall like this, you can take that solid cable and you can use special RJ45s that work with this type of crimper, and it will terminate it perfectly and it will last forever. My viewpoint is that patch cords are so inexpensive that you should just buy them. They're absolutely great, and the ones you buy, you know, in the 9 out of 10 times are going to use stranded cable, not solid cable, and that's better because they bend easier, the stranded, and there's a reason why. There's a dynamic in that, why stranded bends easier and doesn't break. In that case, you would need a tester. If you're going to do your own cabling, you need to make sure you got your pin out right, and you need a tester like this to do it, just to double check it, or else you're going to be fooling around with it forever trying to figure out why it doesn't work. Now, the thing that really motivates a lot of people is fiber. Here's my fiber test kit. And you know, it's kind of interesting. My wife and I will go to events in the community and things like that. You know, you stand around and the women ask the women about family, the guys ask what do you do for a living, and I'll be talking to someone and they'll be drinking some sort of drink and eating some sort of small stupid carrot, and they'll say, what do you do? And I say, well, cabling. And they kind of like look at the lights in the ceiling and they say, oh, that's nice, you know. And then I say, oh, we also do fiber optics. And they go, really? You do fiber optics? Fiber optics is really easy to do. It's not that hard. But I don't tell them that. I mean, if they really think that's a big deal, then that's fantastic. But again, I got a Pelican case here, and this is a tester for fiber optics cable. And there's certain times you put in fiber optic cables. You don't run it to a desktop. I heard people say that, oh, I wanted the biggest bandwidth in the world. I want to run it to my desktop. No, pretty much don't do that. Just waste time and money, and doesn't really give you any advantage over it. However, if you're more than 100 meters away, you know, which is 300 feet from, you know, one router or one switch to another switch, then you got to run the cable. So I told you about that big job. That was just one of many jobs. But if you got a really big job and you're on like the first floor, I remember that was another job. First floor, we had a bunch of computers, and they rented the 9th floor, and they had a bunch of computers, and they wanted to connect them all. Well, the way you do that is through fiber, and this is some fiber connections, but it's not how we would do it. We would actually buy the fiber in bulk in a reel, and then we would run the fiber up through the the maintenance rooms that have little holes in the floor, and you can go through the floor and the ceiling, and you can take it up to the 9th floor, and then but then you got to terminate them. So we're going to look at the termination kit now, but this is my fiber testing kit. It's right there, works great. I always kept it in a nice little case from Pelican Case. I guess there's other cases out there now, but this is what they look like. It's kind of cool. We had a neighbor that did blood tests and stuff like that, and they had a bunch of stickers, and one of my guys threw the stickers on the on his Pelican cases that had his laptop on and stuff like that. And he said one time he walked into the elevator and everyone looked at him, and he had a big one. It said biohazard. There's no biohazard in here. It's just a sticker. And when he did that, the people got off the elevator and let him have the elevator to himself. So it's kind of interesting. Let me show you the termination kit. Gosh, I haven't been in that termination kit in 3 years. And let me clear some of this stuff out of the way. Hang in there with me. And that's my hot melt. Now there's other types of termination than just hot melt, but this is what we used, and you can use it. It works fine. It's inexpensive. It does not cost that much, but you do have special tools in here. It's kind of hard to see them all, but you do have special tools, different things. Different tools here. In here, you got a scope. You have, I don't know, just different stuff. I had a guy come to me one time, and I felt bad for him. These are some of your special tools. He came to me and he said, hey, I just finished my course on fiber optic cable, and do you do fiber optic cable? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, how long was the course? And he said, oh, the course was 9 months. I said, was it expensive? He said, no, GI Bill paid for it. And I said, oh, well, we don't do that type of fiber. He said, what type do you do? And I said, we do multi-mode. Multi-mode cable goes only a short distance, and it's very inexpensive and things like that. And I said, and I can teach someone how to do that. Here's a little scope. You got to look in there, see if you got the connection right. And it has batteries in it, and it goes on. It's like a microscope. You can't see it. Probably the batteries are dead. But anyway, make a long story short, I can teach someone in 2 hours how to terminate fiber optics, and we always terminated them ourselves, and then we use, of course, the tester that you just saw, and you know, that would test whether or not we did it right. We would always order more than we needed, more pairs than we needed of the fiber optic cable, and then we just terminate what was needed. And then if they wanted to add more equipment in the future, then of course, you know, you would have that. And these are all the hot melts. You put them in a little oven. There's a little oven there. Heats them up. You put the fiber in there. A little kit here. This is fairly new, and the reason why this is new is because someone stole my other one, and the insurance company paid for our equipment that was stolen up in LA. There it goes. So it's just a hot melt kit. You buy them by the kit. I would recommend buying the kit. Again, when you're dealing with local area networks, you're dealing with multi-mode, not single mode. Single mode is what you would use with the phone company or the internet providers, things like that. And if you do use it with those guys, they're looking for you know, someone. It's like that person that took the 9-month course, I imagine. I don't know. Well, I don't do that type of stuff, so I don't do long haul fiber. I do short haul fiber. Stuff that goes from a switch, like a Cisco switch has plugs in it and stuff like that. You got to have a distribution panel for fiber optics and stuff like that. There's a bunch of ways to do it. You got to make sure you don't bend the fiber optics certain ways. You know. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. But that's a fiber optic case, and that's what it looks like. And that's one of the tools of the trade. If you start doing big installs, where you're going to have to go further than 300 feet, 100 meters. And again, I know that 100 meters is more than 300 feet. But in my brain, I always keep it at 300 feet because you have patch cords and things like that that take up extra space. So I try not to pull anything more than 300 feet. But how often do you pull something 300 feet? Rarely. Rarely do you pull anything at 300 feet to a jack. There's ways to design a network, and I'm going to get to that in a second from now. Here's some other products. This is stripper, coax stripper. They're nice. And this is a compression tool. You would put your coax cable in there. This is coax. I never got a lot into coax because in commercial cabling, there's not a lot of coax that's being used. And of course, in the future, we're going to talk about this. This is called a butt set. This is my butt set. Man, I haven't used this in years either, but this is top of the line butt set. And I'm going to talk about that in another video. I'm trying to think, is there anything I missed? Yes. Little I think they call them banjos. I just used to call it a breakout box. And that's used for RJ11s, basically. The dial tones, breaking out a dial tone out of it. Used with alligator clips. Now this is just general information because I don't think I would recommend you to buy a butt set. Nice about this butt set that I always wanted, or made sure I got, was if you look in there, right, I don't know, let me wind this out a little bit, just excess information. But if you look in there, there's let's see, focus. There's a thing in there that has a bunch of nails, and well, they're not really nails, they're pins, and that's called a bed of nails. So if you put your wire in there, and then you close it and you squeeze down on it, it would go through the insulation, and you could break into a line that way. This is designed to go into a 66 block, and notice that they have angles on them, so you can hit the 66 block like that and not touch each other. If they were straight, they'd be touching each other on a 66 block. So there's a lot of neat little designs. I used to, I don't know, I don't have it anymore. There was a number on there that I would call the phone company, and it would repeat back to me the line that I was on. Again, I think everyone's going to VoIP. There's very little old voice out there anymore. Anyway, since you stayed to the end, and you have to stay completely to the end, I am giving away this. This is a pretty decent tone and probe. I don't know if the batteries are worth anything, but it's brand new, and it's a good tone and probe. It has a little case there like the one you saw, and I'm going to give this away. But this is the rule, okay? You got to do two things. You got to message me on this video, and you got to tell me the name that's on there, okay? And that you're applying to get the free one. Now, I only have one, so the first person that does this gets this. But you also have to tell me whether or not you're interested in that class that I'm designing right now. And again, I'm going to charge for it, okay? Now, hopefully I'll make it to the point to where everyone can go if they want, no matter what your financial situation is. Or if you're a business owner, this is something maybe you want your employees to go to if you're a cable or a thing. We're going to talk about everything on that course. So we're going to talk about cabling. We're going to talk about cable design, network design, how to build a network, how to design a network, how to test a network, all that other stuff. Plus, we're going to deal with everything that's in CompTIA, the Network Plus. And I'm going to point out some things that's in the book that's not done that way anymore that will help you. And also some tricks, mind tricks to help you do subnetting. Wouldn't that be cool? You could cable a building as an IT guy. You know all about cabling and all about the limitations and things like that. But you can also subnet in your mind. And so if you're looking at networks and troubleshooting a network, or if you're planning to do a Cisco test, if you can subnet within a few minutes, a few seconds, you should be able to do it just in your mind. But if you can do that, and then you're going to be way light years ahead of your competition in an IT department. So I can teach you all that. I've been doing this for 40 years in IT. I know IT. There's things I can still learn, I'm positive, and I'm still learning. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I learned that are not in textbooks, that are not in that Network Plus. That's a good book. It's a good certification. It's not going to be a certification class, but I'll cover everything in that book. So if you're thinking of taking that cert, you should be able to at that point at the end of the class. But I don't want to put a ton of time into it if no one's interested. I got other things to do. So I'm waiting for feedback from people. And it would help me to know if there's interest enough to actually put the time in, because it looks like it's going to be 20 hours, 10 to 20 hours or more. I'll put in as much as I can so you get good value out of it. However, if you want the free gift, you got to ask for it. And you have to comment on whether or not I should do that class. Plus, you got to ask for it specifically. And then I will give you direction on how to give me the information to send it to you. So you don't have to give me your address or anything else. Just say, I'd like to claim that freebie at the end of this at the end of your video, and I hope I'm the first one. And what I'll do is I know how to get a hold of you at that point, and I will get a hold of you, and then behind the scene, you and I will work on your address and things like that, and I will send it to you through priority mail. And of course, you have to be in the USA. I can't afford the shipping to other places and the tariffs and everything else. So this is only for people watching this who are in the USA. And hopefully you'll get it, and it's worth about $80 to $100, and it'll be something that you can put in your toolbox and that you'll have. Thank you for watching the video. We covered a lot of things today. I think I have possibly plans for one more video on some stuff, and I know that I'm going to be covering butt sets again. Just out of curiosity, you should know a little bit about them and what they do and how to use them. I'm thinking of that, and then also another class on this really neat crimper. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'll crimp some stuff for you and show you why I would use this, and I'll show you the applications. Thank you for watching the video. I'm looking forward to hearing who wins this tone and probe. Don't tell me the battery's dead. I don't care. You have a great day. Thank you for watching.